You're listening to BQN. Assimilate the audio.
Hey everyone, Davey here. Welcome to the BQN Hive Mind presents Hit It, the BQN's Strange New Worlds live recap panel featuring whoever is available from our pool of hosts and Patreon subscribers, and of course whoever is watching live on the BQN YouTube page and the Trexperts Quiz Twitch channel. Oh god, I can't talk this morning. It's always like that on a Sunday morning for me, but who is here who can talk because it's Saturday evening and probably a bit easier for him is the fabulous Jim McMahon. How are you, Jim?
I am doing fantastic, and it is a wonderful Saturday evening at that.
It's a wonderful, yeah. What's it like in your part of the world at the moment? You're coming into autumn now, so it must be cooling down a little bit.
Right now, at least last I saw it, it was nice and sunny and about 8:30 and about 7:30 at night, but that could change at a minute's notice.
Yeah, fair enough. We're starting to head. It's the final month of winter, so but it's actually been pretty good like the last couple of weeks. So, like I'm looking outside, it's beautiful and sunny outside at the moment. In the last couple of days, we've been hitting about 20 degrees Celsius. I can't do the Fahrenheit translation off the top of my head, but that's a nice winter's day. Like that's a bit of a dream for like the middle of winter. So pretty happy.
Unfortunately,
with that.
where I live, the middle of winter means something completely different.
Yes, I bet. Well, we've had a lot of we've had a lot of miserable weather throughout the winter, like wind and rain and just like the other morning I went to work and it was only 1 degree. So, in Celsius, 0 is freezing. So that's probably a good reference point for people who do Fahrenheit. But then all of a sudden, sunny, blue skies. There you go. Hey, everyone. So for those who don't know, the BQN Hive Mind is a special perk for BQN Patreon subscribers. So if you head to patreon.com/BQN, you can join our Hive Mind roundtables. And when there is Star Trek actually airing, we do this fabulous program where we invite our Patreon subscribers to actually be a part of the show with us. Jim here has been a Patreon supporter of the show, of the whole network, I should say, for quite some time, and is always here supporting us.
From the beginning, I think, actually.
You are an OG, my friend. You are an OG. So yeah, if you would like to be a part of this and get other perks, we do early releases and lots of other little bonuses for our Patreon subscribers, head over to patreon.com/BQN. If you are in the live chat today, make sure you share your thoughts with us as we recap Strange New Worlds Season 3, Episode 7, What is Starfleet? And Jim, at the end of it, what is the answer to that question? What is Starfleet?
Oh, Starfleet is so many things. I don't think there is one definitive answer to that question.
Yes, yeah. I saw a review that it was our friends at Strange New Pod. The headline was, asks a lot of questions but doesn't give a lot of answers or something along those lines. I was like, guys, I don't know if I agree with that, but
well, that kind of describes any documentary. Asks a lot of questions but doesn't give many answers.
Exactly. So we're gonna step through the episode with you. If you are listening on the replay, either on YouTube or on the podcast, hold on because I'm sure everyone's got lots of thoughts. I really enjoyed the episode. I've seen some people who really didn't, but I actually had a good time. And in fact, my second watch, which is the watch I used to take notes for the panel, where I actually have to pay a lot closer attention, I think I appreciated it a little bit more. Jim, as we as we opened up this episode onto a Starfleet FBI copyright warning, essentially, that let us
I
know.
like that.
Yeah, well, that let us know immediately we were in for a different kind of episode. How did you first react when you realized what we were in for?
I was like, ooh, this could be interesting.
Yeah, I think there's Strange New Worlds isn't afraid to experiment with the
Yeah.
format a little bit, and we've had so many episodes now that don't start with the traditional cold open. There's always like, oh, what's okay? What's
Yeah,
going
like,
on
and they
here?
didn't even do the traditional credits either. I think it was like they listed off the cast names at the end of the episode, which was very different.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and we immediately launch into a voiceover from Umberto or Berto, I think we call him from here, but Umberto
Beto.
or Berto, yeah, Berto, that's right. But Umberto is his full name. So Umberto Ortegas gives us a bit of a familiar view of, the mighty Starfleet. There's lots of words, inspirational words and people marching around to beautiful music, but then it kind of takes a little bit of a turn and he starts asking all these tough questions around
Yeah, yeah,
what.
I enjoyed that documentarian introduction to the episode. Like, I've never been a huge fan of documents of real world documentaries like that, but some of them are interesting, and I thought, oh, this could be real interesting seeing this from a Federation perspective, not from the perspective of the bridge crew, and not necessarily from someone who is pro Starfleet.
Yeah, definitely. It's and it kind of takes that turn pretty quickly, right? Because he starts
Yes.
asking questions, these tough questions. What separates Starfleet from an empire? And then we get this shot of the Enterprise, and it lists off all of its armaments, like its torpedo banks and
Yes.
its phaser bays, and it
Yes.
paints it. It's like, well, if he's immediately going, all right, if this is meant to be all about exploration, then why is this thing armed to the teeth like a warship? I mean, we
and
as
and
fans know why,
they're
but
tough questions, but they're tough, realistic questions at that as well. They're questions they're questions that you think and expect people to ask in situations like that also.
yeah, exactly. Do you think it maybe was a little bit meta in that sense though? Because I feel like the conversation has been had around Star Trek's future before. Starfleet is the military, right? So, people sort of like often ask questions, what separates Starfleet from the military of today? But I've also seen commentary where they say, the Federation is a big socialist, communist kind of organization as
And
well.
the whole and the whole and I think it's kind of even become tropey by now. The whole, if you're here for exploration or if you come in peace, what's with all the weapons? Because I think every series going back even to TLS has broached that subject at least once at some point.
Yeah, definitely. If I can see there's a few of you lurking in the chat there. If you are watching live, make sure you sound off in the comments around your thoughts on this opening. How did you feel going into this, knowing that we were in for a documentary? What is going on with me this morning? um, Instead of a traditional episode. I feel like we were kind of been leading to it, right? Like Berto's been around on and off for most of the season with his
Oh
camera
yeah,
buzzing
like
around and all that.
I think
But
I think I might have mentioned, I don't know if it was here or in Mission Log, that like at some point I thought we would get a found footage episode of Birdo and Corby. Obviously that never came to fruition, but we
that would have been
definitely
cool.
got a footage episode with Birdo, Umberto Beto, whatever his name is. And I obviously I was partially right in that prediction because
Yeah. I thought it was interesting,
definitely
right?
it was interesting in how they approached it. Like the whole investigative reporter on the Enterprise kind of handled that, but I think Strange New Worlds really did a much better job.
Yeah, definitely. And thank you, Badger in the chat said that they loved this episode and was continuously surprised when they come up with something we haven't seen before. I agree, Badger, and I think that's
I
becoming
do too.
Strange New World's flavor a little bit. It lets experiment with we're doing episodic format, but let's experiment with that traditional episodic format. You know, we got musicals. We had Space Adventure Hour, which kind of shook it up a little bit as well. You know, we're going to have the Muppets next season. There's all kinds of like crazy things to expect.
And apparently we learned they have a Federation Freedom of Information Act. So I really love that we learn behind the scenes fact about the government even.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, he certainly goes out of his way to sort of really make you rethink the Federation and Starfleet. Not so much the Federation, probably more Staff. He very much focuses on Starfleet as an organization, as the military arm of the Federation, and that's kind of what he's alluding to, the fact makes it an empire. Because, you know, he's constantly going classified, redacted, beeping things out that are redacted and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, like the other half of that conversation over subspace with what I took to be Admiral April.
You would assume
I really
it was,
yeah. And I figured part of the reason was either they couldn't afford to, or they couldn't schedule the actor for Admiral April, and that was just their way of fitting it into the script around that. That was my take on that, but still, it was a brilliant take.
It worked because, you know, Alberto was hiding behind, you know, maybe not meant to be filming that, and that's why so much of it was redacted and garbled. Because you can imagine that, you know, Starfleet would take this documentary and then, you know, obviously want to review it before it's released. But anyway, there's lots of thoughts there. One thing I did kind of find myself thinking about as I watched it, I was like, well, Umberto's been on the ship for ages, filming lots of other stuff going on. Like he was trapped in that prison in Through the Lens of Time, but he chose this mission in particular to base his documentary off and make his point, which I guess kind of makes sense.
Well, that other one might have. That other one, let's not forget, he also got scared. He also might have been scared out of his mind, and I think he also nearly got killed too.
True.
So there are also other very good reasons for why he didn't choose that one.
Yeah. So anyway, we move into little interviews with our familiar crew, and we get a lot of their initial views on what is Starfleet. So Pike sort of gives us this bit of heroic intro. Ortegas is working on a motorbike and is very indifferent. Like
I loved that.
Yeah, I took Ortegas's kind of thing in this as like maybe she was just like wanting her brother to piss off. Stop asking these questions. Piss off.
The only thing I was curious about with that though is where was she gonna how or where was she gonna ride the bike?
Yeah, true. I mean, it's not. If anyone remembers Babylon 5, Garibaldi had a motorbike there, but he actually rode that around the station because Babylon 5 was huge. But I mean, maybe she's just a tinkerer. She's just a tinkerer, and she just likes to do up old machines. Who knows?
I just remember seeing that, and that was the first thought that came to mind.
Yeah. Spock has an anecdote about him trying to inflict sort of self-harm on himself, how he gets found in the cave, and he says he was trying to cut away his human half, which was really... I was taken aback by that. I was like, wow, that's actually really intense. And also a really intense thing for a Vulcan to share and be very vulnerable in that situation as well. But I think as we find out, as the episode kind of comes full circle at the end, everything we're learning here really kind of it's actually written quite well, because we do get everyone's why and what of Starfleet by the time we get to the end by hearing these stories. What did you think of Spock's "I was trying to cut away my human half" story?
I don't think I reacted at the time, but later when I thought about it, I was like, I could not believe it. Like and this is a character who was already well established, already well defined, and they come up with another layer to the character that's gonna not only knock our socks off, but knock us to the floor and send us rolling 3 feet away. Yeah,
Badger in the chat makes a good point that it adds interesting tidbits to Star Trek canon which I do agree, Badger, that can sometimes go either way. But
Yes.
Badger seems to think it seemed to fit logically in this context, and I agree. I think everything, because then we moved on to La'an being a badass as always, talking about the hazards of the job. I don't think killing people is okay, but I think it sometimes is necessary for the greater good. She said, "We're just." It was such a wonderful way to enrich these characters a bit more, because as we've all been saying, the characters don't. I think a lot of people have been feeling that the characters don't get enough time to breathe in this 10 episode format. And this kind of gave them that
This was
space a
definitely an
little
episode
bit.
that gave them a chance to breathe.
Yeah, there was a lot of depth added here. Una then also comes in and talks about her role. She's there to support the captain and the crew. She offers options, strategies, alternatives, but her job is not to question orders. And that comes up a lot in this as well. There's a lot of, we don't have to like the orders, but we have to follow them kind of thing. I made a note
noticed
here.
that too.
I made a note here, though. I said, for the crew that's been disobeying orders at the drop of a hat for most of the last 3 seasons, I thought that was an interesting. I mean, I say that very comically. I think I think we saw them as a true.
We say it with a
Starfleet
grain of
crew.
salt, basically.
Yeah, yeah. So then we learn about. So Uhura jumps in and talks about, all right, here's the mission. We don't always know the specifics of the mission, and we get the little subtitle sort of exposition that there was the planet's Lutani, which was attacked by a sister planet, Kazar, as Kazar attempts to lay claim to Lutani systems and its resources. Lutani has 9 million casualties, whilst Kazar only had 119,000. So get ready for a layered Star Trek moral dilemma coming right at you.
Yeah.
I was like, all right, okay, I feel like I know what we're in
Talk
for
about a
here.
lopsided Vietnam-style war.
Yeah, and a lot of interesting, almost, I'm not going to get political or anything, but, some very interesting...
That was as far as I was going to go with the
Yeah.
politics.
But just, it's even commentary on maybe some stuff that's kind of even happening today, right? Because, Ortega's kind of says, what? They're in the middle of a war and they're under attack. What do you think we're transporting? She says that in the lift. Because they're all been told that they're transporting cargo to Lutani 7, which is the planet which has suffered the most, or the most losses and the most casualties, but no one knows why. It's all very, very classified, and but they're also clearly expecting some sort of fight as they head into this as well. But Jim, we as Star Trek fans, we know that nothing is going to be as it seems as they head into this, right?
No, I did not think it would be so cut and dry as pick up the cargo, transport the cargo, drop off the cargo, and leave. That would just be a boring episode.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but I loved it. I'm such a big fan of what people are referring to as the B plot in this episode. I don't know if there really was an A and a B plot. It all sort of kind of melded nicely in together.
Yeah, I thought there was just all one plot combined.
Yeah. There was a great Star Trek adventure happening underneath it, absolutely. Now, as we talk about all of this, so then Uhura comes on and says, talks about what the mission is and so on and so forth. And then, that's right, she talks about the Jakaru being the Lutani word for starlight or something like that. And they're these creatures that have evolved to the point where they can move through space, and I was like, "Oh, okay, this is interesting. What's going on?"
Did you pick up? Did you pick up on Jakaru? Hikaru? Maybe an ode to Sulu there.
Maybe. I did write a note here. I got confused in my first watch between who the Lutani, the Kasar, and the Jakaru was. I was like, there's a lot of new alien-y names coming at me here. I'm not entirely sure who's who.
The other thing I liked about the Jakaru, and I don't know if you and this came off as an obvious one, at least to me. It looked like a cross kind of between the space whale. It looked kind of like a cross between like the whales the humpback whales from Star Trek 4 and Gamtu.
Yes, yes. We'll get into Chikara in a bit, but Badger's just made a comment, which I think aligns a little bit to what I'm sort of saying here, is that, we didn't really learn a lot about these aliens or spend a lot of time with them. We learned
really
very
didn't.
little
I will
about
admit
them,
that.
and will we remember them in years from now like we do with species like the Melkotians, or, I guess maybe Badger, as the series matures, the iconic aliens and characters will mature and develop in the zeitgeist as well a little bit.
I think the Jakara will definitely be one we'll remember, though.
I think the Jakaru is probably, the memorable part of this. Before we get on to meeting the Jakaru, though, I also wanted to point out, I made a little note here about there's a little moment in the scene during the briefing where Spock hands a coffee to La'an. And all I wrote was, subtle hint that they're still bumping uglies, maybe?
All I remember thinking during that scene is, "Ugh," like, dear God, please stop the plot line for that now.
Well, I mean, they haven't really focused on it at all since they first introduced it, but there was it was just a little moment, and there was a slight bit of eye contact, and there was a little bit of a, like, oh yeah, they're just...
But you
still
can tell
having
I'm not a fan of that plot line.
sexy fun times going on there still. Good on them. Anyway, well, since you don't like that plot line, we won't linger on it too much, because the episode definitely didn't linger on it. It was just
If you want to talk about it, I'm fine, but...
it was more just that it happened. It was just very, very subtle. Like, blink and miss it. But I thought that there was something tender and familiar in the way in which he handed her the coffee, and to which he was, wondering when their next dance lesson was going to be. So we meet the Jakaru. I just wrote space jellyfish here, right? So there's a containment field.
That could be too.
Yeah. What was that? Sorry.
But the songs that we heard of the Jakaru language, that definitely sounded like the whale songs from Star Trek 4.
Yeah. There was a bit of space whales encounter at Farpoint space jellyfish hybrid going on here. Just quickly, Badger has a theory about Spock and La'an. It's that since she isn't a part of TOS canon, they could be setting her up to die, which explains the more stoic Spock in TOS. I've heard that theory as well, Badger. That maybe La'an
I have heard that one also.
Yeah, maybe La'an could be doomed. Who knows? So we're back to the Jakaru.
She doesn't have plot armor, that's for sure.
No, she doesn't. There's a few that don't. So anyway, we're back to the Jakaru. So initial thoughts, I was like, this is kind of cool. Like, there's cool special effects. I was like, oh, what is this? What's going on? But then
that sequence where it comes up out of the ocean, off the planet, into space. The effects combined with the music of it. Yeah, I'm losing the ability. Now I'm losing the ability to speak.
Yeah.
The effects combined with the music. One of the best sequences I think I've ever seen in Strange New Worlds.
Yeah. It was pretty cool, and we get this like immediate confusion here, and this is where I got confused in my first watch about who was who and who was fighting who, because the Lutani ship shows up and starts firing at it, and I was like, wait, hang on, I thought we were transporting this for the Lutani, and anyway, big, tentacles.
Oh yeah, I think that scene was meant to be confused, because even the bridge crew seemed confused at first about that too.
Yeah, exactly. And I was a little confusing what was going on. I think they maybe could have given us some more throwaway lines just to remember who the Lutani were here. So anyway, it gets its tentacle death. Pike gives us what was always going to happen at some point in this episode is he swipes it. They could turn that damn thing off. Like, of course that was going to happen at some point.
Every time there's a documentary, every time there's like a camera in an episode of Star Trek like that, there's always a turn that damn thing off. Like, the best one I remember was Kirk doing that in Star Trek Generations.
Yeah, exactly. And we move to anyway. So that happens, and we get the Lutani scientists in sickbay, and they're like, we're sort of like, okay, so why did this person risk their life to sabotage their own project. They're bleeding out, and they tell us that the Jakaru is a terrible, awful mistake and that they were wrong. What could it mean? What could it mean? Lynn, interesting point in the chat there that about how, and I think we'll probably discuss that more at the end, around what actually happens with the Jakaru and its state. And it's definitely, you've pointed out something about what happens there, and I will come back to it, I promise. But it's it's something I had not thought of. Anyway, those listening to the replay, you'll find out when we get there. You've seen the episode.
I don't think they Oh, sorry, Davey. Yeah, I don't think they completely went back to that plot point about how the whatever their names are, at least the scientists fully realized they'd made a mistake. Like they never fully explored or explained that again. They just said we realized we made a mistake and it shouldn't have happened, and they left it at that.
Yeah. And, Lynn's referring to the fact that Jakaru does, basically commit suicide at the end and what that means. And I think that's a very heavy topic. We'll definitely touch on that when we get to that part in the plot. So anyway, we'll loop back down to what's happened. They've flatlined. The Lutani scientist, I'm gonna have to remember all these names. The Lutani scientist has died. I made a little note here about something that has been kind of bugging me this whole season. They've got this thing with giant font coming up on the screens telling us the really, really obvious. Like the word flatlined comes up on the screen when the scientist died. And there's been other episodes where it's comms blocked, coming, and then Spock or someone will turn around and go, comms blocked, Captain. It reminds me of Galaxy Quest with Sigourney Weaver's character, whose job is just to repeat really loudly what the computer says. Am I alone? I don't know. Maybe I'm alone in that picking that up, but it's been annoying me all
I didn't even pick up on that.
You'll see it now. Go back when you go back and rewatch some of these episodes. You'll notice sometimes it flicks away from it really fast, but it's just flatlined, comms blocked, shit, all that kind of stuff. Badger noticed it as well. Thank you, Badger. Thank you.
I'm sure I noticed it, but it was probably so insignificant for me I didn't even pay attention to it.
Yeah. We then move into a scene with M'Benga. So this is the first time we sit down with M'Benga. He's very, very, very stoic in this scene. He continues to be the most undoctor-like doctor we have ever met, is what I wrote in my notes. The Hippocratic Oath took some kind of a break in this part of the 23rd century. Because, literally, Umberto paints him out to be a pretty evil dude here, right? He's... And all the redacted
wow, this is
stuff.
A dramatic. I was like, wow, this is a very dramatic turn from what is supposed to be concentrating on this humanitarian thing, and suddenly you're trying to paint an evil picture of the chief medical officer of the starship.
Yeah, I know. It's all redacted. And then I thought it was very odd that he asked him. Why did he ask him about scrubbing surveillance logs from sickbay? That question didn't seem to have any motivation behind it other than for us as the audience to go, ooh, we know he has.
Yeah, it kind of came out of nowhere, I thought. But I did like M'Benga's kind of no response to that. It was kind of even tempered in his voice kind of response, he wasn't giving anything away while also trying to. I don't even know how else to say it after that.
Yeah, exactly. Badger seems to think that it does set M'Benga up to maybe leave the show at some point. Which again, does M'Benga have plot armor? Because isn't M'Benga in the pilot of the Kirk version of TOS?
He's not in the pilot, but he is in TOS in 2 episodes. So
yeah.
He does have built-in plot armor.
Yeah, to an extent. But I mean, they have a lot of creative freedom with him.
Or maybe that could be a way that they're setting up to possibly introduce McCoy for that transition.
Sorry, I'm just laughing at Badger's comment. He's in TOS slapping Spock awake. That's funny. Yeah. Anyway, I think we'll learn more about that as time goes on. We also then get a lot more exploration into Uhura's past as well, with the loss of her family. Interesting, the discovery that her academy roommate Elena Cho went down with the Cayuga. That was something I found really, really interesting, and I was at first I was like, oh wow, why do we have this revelation in here? But it does kind of tie into sort of the overall theme. But it was, I kind of felt that too, right? Because I think a lot of us have had that experience where we're talking about old friends, people we went to school with, and then you find out that maybe you haven't had contact for a while, and maybe you find out that one of them's no longer with us. Maybe more than one of them are no longer with us. I know that I've found out that people who were in my graduating year in high school, have since passed away,
Yeah, same here.
and it's always, I feel like I react a little bit like Uhura reacted in this situation. It's not that immediate kind of like, oh my god, this is so horrible. It's just that like, oh wow, okay, like, but I'm still here, and we're the same age, and there's almost that there's you can see it in the way she portrayed this scene. There's that sense of being faced with your own mortality a little bit, and that we're all kind of lucky to be here each and every single day, given how quickly life can turn.
Yeah, and you know what I would love to see now at some point in the future? Like, I know this is more for fanfic than anything. Like, I'd love I know this would never happen in the actual series, but I'd love like a fanfic episode where you see like the spirit of Elena would ever come back and like haunt Chapel, and Uhura be like, I was banging on the window as the shit as the saucer came crashing down. I was alive.
Oh no, poor Elena. It could be a little
Yeah.
bit like who was it who the vision Tilly had of the person that she went to school with in Discovery. I've forgotten the
Yeah.
name of her, but anyway.
I mean, I know that thing will never happen, but see, I would love to see a story like that now, because I have always thought there were other crew members on the Cayuga that were alive when they crashed the saucer section. That's always been my backstory.
So Pike and Una, this is the next scene is Pike and Una being watched from around the corner. We've covered this bit off a little bit, right? So they're giving an update to Starfleet on what's happened, but Starfleet is still saying I'm guessing, to still go ahead with the mission. We're basically transporting a living biological weapon here, so because
Yep.
it's Spike, Pike. I cannot talk today, everyone. Pike makes a comment here, which I thought this line was a little awkward. He goes, "It's now a weapon, but also a creature." How about, but also a sentient living being? Although I guess they're not quite sure of its sentience just yet, because it could still be reacting on instinct at this point. We moved to the science lab. I noted here, again, no Scotty or Pelia this week. We've got Chapel,
I
Uhura,
was
and
so disappointed by that.
so
I
disappointed.
wanted I wanted to see I wanted to see an interview with Pelia.
Yeah, especially when we consider, for those watching on YouTube, the scene that Jim is using as his background at the moment. But we'll get to that at the end of the discussion. A little bit weird that was the case. So, but anyway, at this point, they believe that they might be able to communicate, because they talk about the fact that Spock's hand was shaking during the, I guess, quote unquote battle scene on the bridge. And he said that, he's been basically, there's some form of psionics that Vulcans abandoned centuries ago because it caused massive issues, like brain aneurysms and all this kind of stuff. But that sensitivity still exists. And so he's picking up some kind of brain waves or something like that from the Jakaru. And this is where it becomes, there's very classic Trek cliches here. Like Uhura's like, we need to talk to it, right? All we need to do is learn how to talk to it. And I was like, of course, it's Vulcan telepathy. That's how we're going to communicate with it.
Yeah,
But
I kind of had an issue with that because they've already well established Vulcan telepathy is physical touch telepathy, and there was none of that here.
Yeah, definitely. Instead, on the bridge, they're doing the exact opposite. They're loading neural dampeners into torpedoes to fire at the Chikaru. And Badger just said in the chat, Pike really dismissed that we can communicate with it rather brashly, right? He was just like, nope, we need to basically sedate it and continue to tow it like they were originally planning to do, I guess.
I thought the same thing.
Yeah,
I thought that was very un-Pike-like of him.
I agree. And then, I mean, they change their tone pretty quickly when they fire the torpedoes at the Chikaru, and they really, really piss it off. It looks like we'll have to give Uhura's plan a try. Umberto is kicked off the bridge, but thank God, because the cameras on the bridge are always recording during a crisis, which I thought was convenient.
And that would explain so much. And that would explain so much Trek footage we've seen during battle sequences.
What did you think of those awkward camera angles, though, from everyone's station? I was like,
how the hell did they pull some of that off in just like however many days they had to do it?
Yeah. Dear. Yeah. The drone did allow for some pretty good angles, and then we obviously had to go for the like right up Lan's nostrils view, but that's okay. Interesting here, we then jump back into some of the character interviews, and we go back to Ortega's fixing her motorbike. She's very angsty. Like, she really doesn't want any part of it, right? But I felt like that was a little bit of like just brother sister. Like, maybe she was just like, you know what? Like, why is my brother here? Like, annoying the shit out of me whilst I'm just trying to do my job.
I thought it was some of that, and I thought there might also be some of the edgy Ortegas from earlier in the season as well, possibly.
She's still struggling a little bit, you think?
Yeah.
Yeah, I could see that.
Like, we haven't seen it the past 2 or 3 episodes, but we also haven't seen Ortegas that much the past 2 or 3 episodes either.
I know, but I want more of Ortegas being brilliant. I love when Ortegas is...
Yeah, more Tegas.
More Tegas, please. Yes, love that. Umberto interviews Uhura in secret. This is an interesting scene, and he's...
I loved that scene so much.
Yeah, and he's really pushing her to try and get her to use words that, paint Starfleet in a bad light. He even uses the term colonizers. And as someone
I did not like. Yes, he's never been a huge fan of Starfleet, but suddenly he's this reporter trying to suddenly he's trying to push someone into out of nowhere. And it's someone he supposedly has a huge hard-on for. Like, seriously, what were the writers thinking in that moment? It was like when she spotted that drone and she was like, seriously, dude, bleep you.
Well, I don't know if I'm critical of what the writers were thinking here. I think that's what we find out about Umberto is that he's a little angry at Starfleet, and so he's pushing this narrative, and he's approaching his documentary. I think this is where we find out he's approaching the documentary with a bias, right? Like, he's not being a journalist here who's unbiased. He is definitely trying to push a certain narrative that he believes is true because he's angry at Starfleet, in which we find out a little bit more later on. But yeah, like, it was harsh, like, just sort of, because there is he talks about it as an empire, right? And, we think about, people who refer to as, like, the British as the colonizers of sort of like modern Western civilization, and also what kind of comes with that as well. There is some very negative connotations that comes with that too. And obviously, I'm in Australia, and there is a lot of debate around, like colonization and what that did to the indigenous people here and what have you. So it was very, very like harsh language to use. But I think, again, that's just how he's feeling, and it's demonstrating his anger at Starfleet. He's just like, I see them as no better than the colonizers of the past. But again, that's getting very deep. That's getting very deep.
And starting to border on political.
Oh, I can get political if you want me to. But we switch to Chapel, Uhura, and Spock on the shuttle mission to have a little Jakaru chit-chat. I like this scene. I actually thought this scene was a bit too short. I would have liked this scene to be a little bit longer.
Oh, I wanted that scene to be so much longer. I thought that was the best sequence in the episode.
Yeah, exactly. Because the Lutani, they start communicating, and the Lutani warship arrives pretty quickly, believing that Starfleet is now trying to steal their quote-unquote weapon. We don't really... We believe there's been some kind of firefight here, but the cameras all get short-circuited, and Spock is put into an induced coma because he's overwhelmed by the having to communicate with the Jakaru. I find that what Uhura suggests here, though, this took me by surprise. She's like, "Oh, I can do it. I can do it because I'm not. I felt the presence of the Jakaru as well. So with some neural whatever bits and pieces on my head, I'm not as sensitive, telepathically sensitive as a Vulcan, so it might not overwhelm me. Which is, I guess I get it, but Pike seemed really reluctant the whole time to do any more of this, like, trying to communicate, because he starts that with, like, well, guess we're done with trying to communicate, back to square one, which was an interesting reaction from Pike, don't you think?
Yeah, I definitely thought so. Pike in this episode was more military man than explorer, I thought.
He was,
And
yeah, he was being the military man here, wasn't he?
and it was definitely very anti-Pike, I thought. Like, I've always liked the Pike character for being more for being either a balance of the two or just slightly more explorer, but go to the military side when he needs to, kind of a thing. He was definitely he was definitely leaning hard more into the military aspect this episode, I thought.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, and I think that's, I mean, there was a little bit of like misdirect, right? Because I think maybe they were trying to also challenge the audience perceptions of what is Starfleet. I think that was kind of a little bit of the point around this as well. So we cut to a scene of Uhura experiencing extreme discomfort at the whims of a glowing headpiece, which is classic. She hums away before shouting out words like destroy, attack, destroy me. The Jakaru wants them to attack the sun. If we attack us, she will follow us there. And Mbenga interprets this that the Jakaru is tired of being a weapon, and that she wants to die because she hates what the Lutani have turned her into, I guess. Which I guess... And this is where it starts to get really interesting and a little bit problematic, as we had Lynn in the chat kind of alluding to before as well. Because I guess we're meant to believe that the Lutani have essentially... Have they tortured? Have they tortured her? Is that what they've done to the Jakaru? Like, how did you read this?
I'm not sure what they did. This kind of struck me, but this also kind of struck me as a situation similar to the Bandai and the space jellyfish. It's like, how did they capture this thing? How did they wrangle it in? We don't know. We're just magically supposed to believe it happened.
But then we fast forward very quickly that death is the only option for the Jakaru here. Because, Pike gives this analogy of the time he had to euthanize a bronco, and that's just the job sometimes. But I think what they're trying to say is that she's injured and traumatized beyond repair, and she just cannot and will not go on. Probably because there's some, maybe a belief that the Lutani will just continue to experiment on her or something. But it's impactful. But I think when you and Lynn kind of put this thought into my head before, it is a little problematic when you think about it. Like, why did it immediately, she was depressed, she was upset, so committing suicide was the only way out, which is horrible. Like, and I don't want to unpack that too much because it's a very sensitive topic, and if that topic kind of brings anything up for you, please make sure that you look at the appropriate, services.
And I do
in
like
your
what
area
Badger
for
says in the
that. But,
comments here.
yeah.
He says that he wonders if the Jakaru are cousins to the aliens from Encounter at Farpoint. That's an interesting thought, actually.
Yeah, it could be. It could be. And I know a lot of people have made that comparison to the Encounter at Farpoint, but yeah, I was actually very emotionally moved by the whole thing. But now that I've come away from it a little bit and I'm thinking about it, I was like, oh, why did that have to be the only way out? Which is, again, it was very sad. And we also have, there's this communication that the Jakaru has children on her homeworld that have not been altered. And we have to tell the Enterprise basically promises to protect them, and they make that planet Tychus B or whatever it was a protected world, but then there's also the Lutani coming back as well, going, "Why are you doing this? Like, this is our only hope." 9 million of their people have died compared to under 200,000 on the other side, right? Like, this is. And we've seen the destructive power of the Jakaru, right? They're like, this could turn, basically saying this could turn the tide of the war in our favor. And they're like, no, not at the expense of this species. You've damaged them so much already that they want it to end. So there's a lot of layers, I think, to the moral dilemma in which this raises, and some of the subtexts. The needs of the many, as Badger has just said in the chat, the needs of the many.
Exactly. And I also liked the episode kind of came full circle at this point, because this is the point of the episode where we see clips that they showed at the beginning of the episode where they were showing the Federation in a negative light as the Empire, but you're seeing them here. It's not a negative light at all. It's and it's not necessarily negative light at all. It's we're defending ourselves. We're only defending ourselves kind of a thing.
Yeah, it's full on. And I know I bet across the Trek airwaves this week, people are unpacking this. There are definitely some themes in this. We did touch on like themes of suicide, and I don't want to push those aside, but I also feel that I'm not qualified to speak about that at length on the show. I am not
qualified at all to speak about it.
And also as well, I feel that discussing that could bring issues up for people, and that's why I say, absolutely, if watching that episode or even hearing us talk about it has brought anything up from you, I know in Australia Lifeline is a fantastic service, and there are amazing services that you can look up if that does bring anything up for you. So let's move into the conclusion here, right? So I think we've agreed, like, in the realm of Star Trek moral dilemmas, this is a good one, but also a problematic one at the same time.
Yes.
But the bow that's tied on here is that, we move into learning how Starfleet has been so incredibly beneficial to everyone in the trauma and the issues and the identity that and all those issues that were raised by some of the core cast in their interviews at the beginning. How it's helped Spock reconcile his human half, or how it's helping him reconcile that. And what it's meant for Uhura, which was all really, really touching. Umberto is like, and wow,
how she helped Beto realize his whole issue with Starfleet was just because he didn't have his sister.
Yeah, exactly. And that's it. Yeah, Uhura is just like, well, you're angry at Starfleet, but you don't have to be. So just reading Badger's comment. Don't get me started with the Federation. They are terrible recruitment, as it's always a captain or admiral going nuts. They have good intentions, prime director. Yeah. we could probably start the podcast all again if we wanted to get in on that, Badger. But yeah,
we could do that on a round table for hours.
Yeah, exactly. So then we cut to shots of our crew as a family around the captain's dinner table, and we get Battelle is there.
I'm convinced there is cut footage we did not see, because that is the only time we see her in the entire episode, and she did not have one line.
Well, she's just living in Pike's quarters now. Like, I guess because she's being treated by M'Benga. But yeah, she's just there. She's not even like. I guess she's on some kind
Literally,
of
she
weird
did not speak
extended
one line
leave.
of dialogue, and that's the only thing she's in. I'm convinced there were scenes cut where she actually had dialogue.
Yeah, maybe. You could be right. You could be right. And of course, clearly Scotty and Pelia are not invited to this cliquey group. Like, they're not cool enough yet
And
to
they
be a
would have
part
been
of.
so perfect in this episode, especially Pelia.
Yeah, Umberto's welcome, and he's the one who's been pissing them off with his camera for the last couple of months. It's, I just think it's so weird how they dip in and out. Like, Scotty's been like in every episode this season, pretty
Yeah.
much. And then all of a sudden he's
Yeah.
not here. Weird.
You know,
Weird.
like, and the way Pelia put Umberto in his place, or in like 2 episodes ago, in like that Tomb Raider style episode at the end of it, like
Yeah,
she would
yeah.
be perfect for being in for being in this documentary episode.
I agree. And then we come to an end, shot of the sun. We get our traditional theme song plays us out, and we're done. So there we go.
And I thought that was, and I thought that intro at the ending thing was brilliant. Like, definitely, definitely different and unusual from what we usually get, and totally perfect.
Yeah, yeah. So, an interesting episode. I mean, I get why it's been a little divisive. I've heard some people be...
The subject of suicide just in general, and
Oh,
it can be
not
very divisive.
Not even that. Like, I mean, that could be a tough thing to talk about. But just in general, the documentary style and all that kind of thing, right? It's divided the fans. Like, this whole season has been dividing fans left, right, and center. Like, I really disliked a lot of what was going on earlier in the season, but now I'm on board. But I know other people who really loved earlier in the season, but aren't liking some of the more recent episodes as much. But that's fine, right? Everyone's different. Everyone's
there for
unique.
a while. Like,
Yeah.
that was me there for a while. Like, I really loved those first several episodes. Then, like, the last two, I haven't liked as much.
Yeah, interesting.
And then this one I really loved again.
Yeah, I didn't mind this one. I think that, that's it's not perfect. What is? You know what I mean?
I think it goes to show you can have clunkers in this modern age again.
Yes, you definitely can. So, yeah, anyway, if you are watching the replay of this, let us know in the comments what your thoughts were on this episode. You are welcome to respectfully disagree with some of our opinions. That's more than okay. And also, if you agreed with anything, or if there's anything you thought we missed out of our discussion, please let us know in the comments. A big thank you to Badger and to Lynn for joining in the chat. We've really enjoyed having you here with us live. Jim, it has been fabulous to have you joining me as well. Where can people find you if they want to continue interacting with you?
I can be found in the Discord chat.
Excellent. Yes, of which there is a invite link in the episode description to this to join the BQN Discord. That is it for us today. We won't be on next weekend because I am away next weekend, but we will return the weekend after to cover off 2 episodes. So we'll be covering off episodes 8 and episodes 9, which is 4.5 Vulcans and Terrarium.
I'm looking forward to 4.5 Vulcans. Patton Oswalt as a Vulcan? That could be interesting.
Yeah, it's gonna be. I think that's one that's gonna divide people as well, because I saw people get very divided over the promo, the little teaser they put out for that about a year ago. But we'll see. If you want to be on the panel with Jim and I, like actually here, part of the show.
And please, more people the better.
Yeah, please. It's so good to have these conversations. You can absolutely join us in the live chat. But if you want to be a BQN Network patron, so patreon.com/BQN, sign up at the Scorpion level or above, which is $5 a month. And yeah, you can actually come and be a part of the show when we're back in a fortnight's time. Remember to check
the investment, people.
Absolutely, absolutely, and it helps keep BQN programs coming to you free and without ads and all that kind of stuff. But absolutely, it's not. You can also still just join in the live chat as well if you want. Remember to check out my other shows on the network, the Trexperts Quiz, which will be returning in mid-September. And also Bargain Bin Gamer, spelled Gaymer, which is all about queer perspectives on video gaming, which did a great episode with Melbourne-based non-binary broadcaster Triana Butler on the wide world of esports, which was a lot of fun. That's it for now. Thank you so much, Jim. Thank you so much for those of us in the chat. And please, if you're enjoying the replay, remember the comments, like, subscribe, all that wonderful stuff. We love you. We'll be back in a fortnight's time. Live long and prosper, everyone.